Welcome to Leader You by Black River Performance Management, where we believe work should fuel the human spirit, not drain it. In this leadership podcast, we will dive into the lived experiences of people flourishing in today's workplace and beyond. Join us to hear real-life examples of experiences from our own lives and from the leaders we know and trust. Successful organizations are dependent on people being competent in their job. To prepare people to do the work, we must prepare them according to the skills, knowledge, and abilities required for the job, correctly and consistently. One of the services Black River offers is evaluating employee and candidate competencies. Our 25 competency assessment focuses on the soft skills, or what we like to call them, essential skills. Our competency assessment is used for more accurate hiring practices as well as for staff development. Every organization could use these competencies to ensure an individual's skills match the soft skills required by the job, to nurture the right talent, to improve productivity, and to develop dynamic leaders. For a sample of the 25 leadership competencies, definitions, and assessment, email us at info@blackriverpm.com. Hello, and thank you for joining us on the Leader You podcast and videocast. Today I have the pleasure of introducing a friend of mine. Ryan Harris is a highly motivated and accomplished business leader with extensive experience in areas like customer acquisition, sales consulting, business development, coaching, and social media marketing. His main goal in life is to create meaningful impacts in both people's lives as well as organizations and communities. As the CEO, visionary, and founder of RizeX, Ryan is committed to bringing business leaders together from all across the region to connect with each other on a deeper level and learn more about how they can build value in each other's business. According to him, RizeX is created to challenge business owners to become more, live higher, and elevate business. Ryan Harris has a proven track record of leading a team of professionals in designing, developing, and implementing cutting-edge marketing solutions for clients across various industries. Prior to founding RizeX, he worked as the Director of Marketing and PR for Silver Star and as the Chief Innovation Officer and co-founder of Arcane Marketing. Ryan is regarded as one of the top marketing leaders and innovators in the area, and he consistently delivers thoughtful, dynamic presentations. His ability to relate to others and teach them what drives people to make decisions and take action is uncanny. When he is not working, he likes to engage with like-minded individuals who share the same passion for success as he does. He's also known for being collaborative, selfless, sincere, spiritual, and a true friend. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty accurate.
Artificial intelligence does a pretty good job, doesn't it? Even writes it better than I could.
That's so incredible. I love it.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm having you on the podcast, Ryan, is because I think we align on a lot of things.
100%.
Yeah, we met in leadership through Leadership Pocatello. We've had a long journey. I've got to participate in some of the RizeX events in Idaho Falls. Haven't been able to in Boise yet, but I hope to in the future. But one of the things, I know that you're a high I, you're an influencer, you're an extrovert, you're very into community and building connections. You're a connector, if I think of you. You actually have sent me connections. I think we do that well for each other, just kind of figure out who needs to know each other. Yeah. And the reason I wanted to have you is because I know that RizeX has kind of been a passion of yours and you're trying to grow it all over the state, and it's been a goal of yours.
It has, absolutely.
And when I was talking about what competency would be good, goal orientation stood out to me because I was thinking about how you've stuck with this through thick and thin, through a lot of things, lots of adversity, roadblocks, challenges, things that come your way, but you really haven't given up on this mission and this vision. Yeah. And so I thought it would be a good thing to talk about the leadership competency of goal orientation, which I'll define for you here, which means setting, pursuing, and attaining goals, regardless of obstacles or circumstances. So we'll have some fun conversations today because we always do. But really, that's the one that stuck out to me because I thought, really, this has been your baby since the beginning. So can you talk about first tell your story about, where you came from, how you got here, and then what brought the idea of RizeX and how that is and all that. So if you could share that.
Yeah, it's interesting. My story is quite unique in the fact that I went to the University of Idaho and I graduated from the engineering department, which not a lot of
I
people
did not know
know or understand. Like, why in the world is an engineering student, a structural engineer, now running a relationship-based organization, right? Because engineers, for the most part, and this is a little bit stereotypical, but engineers, for the most part, are relatively introverted. They want to sit in their cubicle, do the work. They're fantastic. They're incredibly intelligent. And I found very early in my career that that just wasn't the right fit for me when I was sitting there by myself talking to
In a
no one.
cubicle.
And as an extrovert, I'm like, no way, this isn't gonna work. So I started in the world of engineering and found I had a huge passion for connecting people, even that far back, right out of college. As a matter of fact, prior to that, I spent a few years knocking doors for summer sales to pay for college. I was blessed with an incredible parents that fortunately and unfortunately we had a lot of struggles growing up. We didn't come from much. My oldest brother was in and out of the hospital several times, and so any resources basically went to pay for medical bills. So I just learned to hustle early on, and so I spent a lot of time out in the summer times, and I knew that in order to succeed, I had to build relationships instantaneously, especially because I'm knocking on someone's door and they're opening the door, looking at me like, "What do you want?" Right? So I learned to read people very early, and then I finished my degree. I went into the engineering field, realized that during working as an engineer, it just wasn't the right fit, and quite frankly, it was because I was broke and I was broken. I was broke in the context of we were living paycheck to paycheck. My wife and I had a brand new baby, and life wasn't cheap. We just bought our first home. We didn't want to jump from apartment to apartment coming home from school. So we decided to buy a house that was a little bit out of our reach. And so quite frankly, we were broke financially. And we were just trying to figure it out continuously. But I was broken in the fact that one thing that you probably know about me, and when we're talking about goal orientation, is I've always set goals to help identify a clear path of where I want to go. And because of that, and my desire to have success in my engineering profession, I set high goals for myself, which meant I was at work at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, trying to understand the dynamic of the industry, and spent so much time there. And I wasn't getting paid for that. I was driven. I was motivated. I wanted to learn and become the best employee, but be the best engineer that I could be. And so I spent a lot of time there. And I was broken in the fact that I was missing so many of those firsts in the life of my daughter. The first time she took a step, I was at work. The first words that she said, I was not there. I wasn't present. And so for me, my life and my mission has always been about being available and being present in the life of my children. And in the life of my spouse. My wife and I, we've been married now for 21 years. And we've celebrated an incredible life because I've created that opportunity to be there and be present and be active. And so that led me this decision of leaving the engineering profession. I had to find something to do. I actually worked. I was a subcontractor for an organization out of Denver. I managed an $85.5 million contract project at 26 years old. Taking a half a step back, I took a role as a salesperson in that engineering firm. I doubled the company in 6 months.
I'm sure you did.
And they didn't know what to do with me. They're like, "What is this guy? He doesn't even know how to engineer, but he knows how to talk to people, right?" So let's put him in a position to succeed. And sure enough, I closed that much work, and they were like, "Now what do we do with you?" And I said, "Well, you pay me 10% commissions." And they're like, "We're not going to do that. That's a lot of money." I mean, considering I was making just a little over $40,000 a year.
Yeah.
I would have made a significant amount more than that. And so I just said, you know what, listen.
And so would have they.
Well, that's the nuance of engineers, right? They don't understand that side of it. They just want to know how much they're putting in their pockets.
Yeah.
And so I had to make a tough decision. And again, I wasn't terribly happy. It was a great organization, but I wasn't terribly happy just because I wasn't really fulfilling my life mission. What I thought my life mission was to be present. And so I started down this journey of trying to figure out what was next. I fell in love with the concept of consumer behavior. I love watching how business is influenced and consumers are influenced based on how people position or companies position information in front of them to help them make an educated buying decision. It was about 2000, that was probably 2008, 2009 when social media was becoming more and more impactful. I spent 3 years understanding the dynamic of Facebook and Facebook marketing, and Instagram wasn't even alive at the time, and found so much passion in the fact that I could help a business succeed by giving them information that led them to create strategies that would lead customers to them, that would increase their bottom line. And that's really where my digital marketing dynamic started. I was actually pretty particular in the fact that, my goal always was that I wasn't going to try to be the jack of all trades and master of none. I wanted to be the best at what I was good at. And that led me down the path of getting some pretty significant contracts, which also led to a separate conversation of, hey, you're really good at this, but we need all the things. And I thought to myself, well, if I can't do all the things myself, then I have to find and align myself with those people that I can refer to them that I trust. And so we started doing that. And within about 2 years, I had referred so much business externally, almost as much as we were making internally, that I said, you know what if we did a big merger acquisition? So we brought 5 companies into one, web development, videography, Google-based company, and we brought them into one, and we created what is now Arcane Marketing. And I was the chief innovations officer for a few years, and then I was the chief operations officer for a few years, and I was the chief everything officer, I guess you could call it.
Chief optimism officer.
Whatever it was. I was the go-to in the organization that was really running the organization, and we had 35 employees. I loved being with people, right? I loved connecting. And so in 2018, I realized my passion for people, and I was growing the organization as a byproduct of building relationships. And I just thought, you know what, can I provide more value in the community? Can I bring something to the table that is authentic and real and brings the region together in a way that creates a hybrid of strong relationships in a way that people want to trust each other and do business together? And that's where RizeCon in 2018 started. And in that event, we brought 200 plus business leaders from the eastern side of the state. We had several from western, from Boise come over. And we opened up the concept of the RizeCon event, which you presented, I think it was in 2019. And I just thought, we have so many amazing leaders in this community that don't have a voice. Let me give them a voice to see how they've built amazing, amazing businesses in Pocatello and, all the way up and down the eastern side of the state. So we opened that up. I didn't know how to monetize. I lost a lot of money my very first venture.
Yeah, it happens.
Realized very quickly that in order to create success, we had to strengthen those relationships. We did it in 2019, which again was at the Shoshone Casino Hotel. And both of those experiences just really filled a passion of mine of putting amazing humans in a room, teaching them how to make authentic connections, and really build relationships of trust to help nurture and flourish this area. And as I have kind of gone through that dynamic of what really is RizeX and how does it impact the community, I remember my very first time thinking about this concept of community. It was like June the 12th at like 4 o'clock in the morning. I woke up and I just had this overwhelming feeling, call it godsend, call it what you will, but this feeling like I had to do something in this community because there's so many incredible humans that would come and stay if we had the right entrepreneurial dynamic, if people could come together regionally and be together to build this new environment, this new community of business, and help the whole community and the whole region grow as a whole.
Right.
Because living here in Pocatello, that a lot of things are siloed. Pocatello functions in one area, Idaho Falls functions in a different one. And it's very rare if there's cross-pollination between the two. Even though some companies have branches in each area, it's like they still don't cross-pollinate.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm still on that mission of trying to figure a way to build powerful relationships with community leaders in a way that gives everyone an opportunity to grow and flourish their organization, their business, meet amazing humans. Because, if that's the one thing that I've learned is there are so many amazing people that are all on the same journey of just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see when you put them in a room and you open up a conversation and you say, hey, let's talk about it. How the power of that connection and that relationship just drives people to a whole different level of success in their business.
Absolutely. And just
Amazing.
meaningful lives, right? Like just creating meaning for people and getting out of the grind of just
the work sometimes and like, how can I help my community? How can I help other people? How can I give back? That's part of our fulfilling our purpose and our mission too. And so, yeah, I love what you're doing. I know that, there's people that are really good at connecting, and that is one of your gifts, for sure. And let's just talk about some of the challenges and the struggles that you've had as it relates, because when we're talking about goal orientation, we're talking about continuing even through hard stuff. You mentioned you lost a lot of money, but I'm sure you've lost people, you've lost things, things happen and people just see, oh, there's Ryan, he's got RizeX or Rise, you don't know the struggle that the person has. So if you could share with our listeners kind of the struggle so that they can see that, it's not always what it looks like on the outside.
You're going to go deep now.
Yes, you're going to go deep.
Oh,
I'm just going to sit over here and listen.
I appreciate that. And when you shared with me the concept of goal orientation, I almost had a different thought that's come into my mind. And that's, I think oftentimes in life, we hear goals and we hear strategies for setting and accomplishing goals. But as I've taken a step back in my life, what I'm really trying to dive into right now, I'm doing a lot of personal reflection and personal growth. I think you said it's the midlife crisis or whatever you call it. But I think there has to be almost something bigger than a goal, but a vision of what you want your life to be. And to your point, a lot of the reason why I've been able to persist through the hard, and some of it's been tremendously hard, I'll share some of that with you, persist through the hard is because I've had a purpose and a vision bigger than what my goals even were.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Because I think sometimes we set a monthly goal. Okay, I'm going to go accomplish this in a month. I want to do X, Y, Z in my business this month. But if you don't have a bigger vision of where you want your life to be, personally and professionally, it's just a goal. And it's a celebration. Yeah, I accomplished that, but to what end? So I want to dive into that. But let me share with you, you asked the question of, what are some of the complexities that I've been through? In 2020, I went through a really hard time. I had spent several years as the CEO, the COO, the CIO of an organization. It was my baby. I brought it from start to where it was today. I had several partners, and there was a time where we didn't always see eye to eye. And I remember a specific meeting with one of my partners where I just said, listen, it's either me or you. Like, we're to a place in our business and our relationship where we can't coexist anymore. You're doing your thing, I'm doing my thing, but I don't want anything to do with being a partner with you anymore. And that was my personal preference, and I anticipated with the ownership that I had in the company, as well as one of my other partners, that through a voting process, that person would no longer be a part of the company. Well, the coin flipped on me. And I was actually voted out of my company. Something that I started, was extremely passionate about, was driving the organization, was, in my opinion, I felt like I was the most important person in the company. And I don't fault my partners for doing that. Listen, there was some controversy that happened and different business relationships among those partners with other business ventures that just didn't really align, and the concepts and the core values and the passion that they had for life just didn't align with me anymore. And so I said, okay, well then it's my turn. I'm leaving then. But when that happened,
it's rough.
I almost went through this element of like depression and anxiety and stress of, what am I going to do next? I had kind of extracted RizeX from that business entity because it was part of the general organization. And there was another organization, a professional networking group in Eastern Idaho and in Western Idaho called the Givent Executive Network. And I acquired that. There was some great people in that group, and I felt like, I could continue to provide value to it. But over the last 2 years, I've been through some hard stuff. Not that anybody's done to me, but more what I've really started to uncover. Some of the tough things that maybe I didn't face because I thought everything was just rainbows and sunshines. And I realized, and I'm still going through that process. I think we all go through that deep work. That's in some form or fashion throughout our life. And I just found myself, and I continue to find myself in this place where I'm just still trying to figure out who I can best serve. You know, my life mission is you can have everything you want in this life by helping enough other people get what they want. So I'm trying to figure out how do I align that vision of my life. If that's what I'm trying to accomplish, and you said I'm a connector, I would say yes, I'm absolutely a connector, because I feel like one way that I can do that is, you know, living that vision of my life of you can have everything you want in this life by helping enough other people get what they want. I have to be able to understand the needs of other people in order to do that. Now, I'm still trying to figure out you can have everything in this life, because I haven't accomplished the goals that I want to. I don't have the financial success that I want. You know, I don't have all the business growth that I want, but I've realized that there's things that are more meaningful than just the things of life.
Absolutely.
You know, I think about
welcome to midlife.
well, there is a lot of importance
Yeah.
and that's why I love what I do is I truly have a strong enough relationship, and I have a giving enough relationship with people that when I make a suggestion or I refer someone to someone else, and I'm proud to say it, just because I referred them, they're willing to take a call because they know that the intent is true and the intent is authentic and it's genuine and it's real, and I won't connect people unless I know there's some value that they can extrapolate from each other.
Yeah.
And maybe that's one of the reasons why I love it so much. But yeah, it was hard.
Yeah.
It was tremendously hard. I mean, I went from having, 6 partners to being all by myself. From having 35 employees that counted on me, that I shared the vision of the company, where we were going. I found that fulfillment in the reactions and the responses of other people.
Yeah.
And now what I'm working on is understanding how I individually can find that peace within and that success within, so that I don't have to wait for the accolades of other people to be celebrated about me. I mean, even when you read that, I'm like, imposter syndrome, right? In a lot of ways, because I feel like, there's so much more I can do to serve a community, and so many more people that I can serve that I haven't been able to get in touch with. But I have to be true to myself and say that, what is it that I want to accomplish? And, I've heard this saying. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine several months ago, and we were talking about the concept of passion. You hear this concept of chase your passion, find your passion, chase your passion, do your passion. And I think that's right. But I think it's only a piece of the puzzle. And what I mean by that is, unless your passion aligns with the core of who you are, the core values that you share, the core values that you live by internally, it'll just be a passion. It'll be a
Fleeting.
fleeting thought.
Yeah.
And it's not until you have that passion and the core value that is deep rooted inside of yourself that you can truly find success. And success isn't measured by the things.
And we all have different definitions. And I think depending on the phase of life, you define success differently. I bet you when you're younger, it's a nice car, it's getting a good job, it's the title, it's the things, The further you get towards the grave, the more you start to care about the things of legacy. You start to think about eulogy virtues versus resume virtues, right? Like our bios. Like, I hate writing those kinds of things or things about yourself. I'd rather have somebody write it or some AI write it, because who likes to write that kind of stuff about themselves?
Yeah.
I mean, but you have to, because who else is going to know anything about you if you don't share that? So, yeah, I really like this phase of life, because I think it's the phase of wisdom. And you don't get wisdom, it's distilled. It's something that you have to go through hard times. And unfortunately, we all have to go through them. But when you go through them, you build that resilience. You start to understand. You start to learn, what did I learn from this? And I think that's a key differentiator in getting and reaching your goals, is when you turn your failures and your setbacks into learning opportunities versus going into victim mode.
One of the core values that I live by is drive. Right? And so you articulated that and defined it really, really well. I think when we talk about goal orientation, I think that, it states in the Bible that where a people don't have vision, they perish. It doesn't ever say anything about goals per se, but I think that's the context of what was trying to be brought to light, is that, I think of vision of so much bigger, longer, deeper, meaningful, and you can't accomplish that vision without the fractional steps that it takes to get there.
Right.
Right?
Those are the
So
goals, right?
I've had the blessing in my life of aligning myself with a operational system called the Entrepreneur Operating System. And maybe you've heard of Gino Wickman and Traction and all the 9 yards. And I have a dear friend and mentor, Aaron Markham, who introduced that concept to me. Another friend, Eric Madsen, who is our implementer right now. And I've learned so many concepts inside of that practice, right? Because I ran organizations that, candidly, I'm not proud of today in the fact that early in my career, I didn't know how to build a culture of accountability. So I had people working in my organization, I was paying that I don't know if they even produced anything.
Right.
You know, we live and we learn. But inside that concept, it talks about a 10-year goal, an objective for life. It talks about a 5-year, a 3-year, a 1-year, a 90-day run, and then these 90-day rocks and objectives of what we can accomplish. You know, it's interesting. I think if we were to picture our lives in 90-day segments, we might look differently at what we're doing on a day-to-day basis with a bigger picture in mind. I think oftentimes we set a 30-day goal. We might have a year goal. We have a 30-day goal. And we often sell ourselves short in that 30-day goal because we don't know what the 10-year picture looks like. So we're like, I want to do this in a year. I want to make X amount of money. I want to meet this amount of people. I want to have this level of spirituality. I want to build this many relationships with people. But if we don't know where we're going and what that actual legacy, use the word legacy, the eulogy dynamic, if we don't know how we want to paint that picture long term, then we miss opportunities to capitalize on that today, this hour, this minute. And I think, you know, if we talk about tactical strategies, I love tactics, right? Comes from my engineering background. I love the bigger picture, but I also love the tactical. If we talked about tactical strategies, I think, and for those of you that are listening to the podcast today, if you were to take a step back and say, what is my 10-year goal? I hit 43 this year. Still am a young buck. But what does my life look like in 10 years? Where do I want to be? There's power from a mindset perspective in envisioning and continuously looking at or being a part of that dream boarding, that dynamic of, I mean, the mind is such a beautiful, powerful thing. And the more that we really focus on that, the better we can align the rest of the world around us to get to that point. But how many people have written it down?
Right.
I mean, you hear all the time, like, people plan more for a vacation than they do for their retirement. I would almost say people plan more for a vacation than they do their life.
I would say the same.
Like, what could life be like if we all defined what we wanted it to accomplish? Because you know as well as I do, when you go after something with that drive, you'll get there eventually. The road that you create 10 years out is not going to look the same of how you thought you were going to get there, but eventually you'll get there.
Or you'll end up somewhere better because you did the work.
That's right.
And you built skills that open new doors for you. And that's the part we have to be flexible in our goals and know that when we do build goals, that we aren't going to be the same person in 10 years. So your 10-year goal is not probably going to be what you'll actually want in 10 years.
That's exactly right.
And so you can set it because you need to have something to go towards, but be flexible to a new door or a new opportunity comes your way or one connection sets you down a completely different path, and not be so focused on I have to do this thing because I set this goal. I work with people that get so upset when they don't meet their goals because they are not flexible, and they're like, I'm not meeting my goals and I didn't hit my sales and I'm like, calm down. Like, literally, what's actually happening? What are you learning? What are you growing? Because there's actually things that are being uncovered. And even like in a difficult circumstance that you go through, that was a teacher. That was a huge teacher in your life that is going to open new doors and
100%.
new opportunities that you wouldn't see before you went through that crap phase, right?
You know, it's interesting, and I've studied goals for a lot of things in my life, right? And we talk about that vision, and I couldn't agree with you more. It's you have to be flexible in the journey. You've probably seen that diagram of, you know, what success looks like, and it's all over the place, and then eventually you get there. Most people think it's a straight line. Everybody else is like, no. Those people that have been through it know that there's turns and there's curves and there's twists and there's bends in the road every single time you turn around. But the beautiful thing about it is there's two things in my mind that are coming to my mind right now is gratitude and reflection. You know, you're right. We all take a different path to get to where we think we want to be. And especially if it's a path that we've decided we want to get to. But it's hard to remember how you got there if you don't take the time to reflect and be grateful for every single bump in the road. The other concept that came to my mind is, when we talk about vision, we talk about goal orientation. I think there's two ways to set a goal, right? You hear the concept of these BHAGs, these big, hairy, audacious goals of like, throw it out there because then it'll challenge you to get
Hardy.
there. Yeah, the Darren Hardy dynamic, right? The entrepreneur roller coaster. So I think it's extremely valuable because, the way that I would look at it is set your big, hairy, audacious goals to be that 3, that 5, that 10-year goal out there. But then reverse engineer that back into it with SMART goals. What is the 90-day objective that I can accomplish that if I stay on that path, regardless of how I get to that end result, if I can stay on that path for the next 90 days, trusting the process, that in 10 years I'll get to that point, or in 3 years, or in 5 years, or whatever that is. So I think that, when you talk about SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time sensitive, it's a good way to keep a kind of a barometer in your life of where are we going and what temperature, where are we on the temperature gauge and how much fluctuation. Because I think to the opposite of that, if we always set these big, hairy, audacious goals, then we won't have the roadmap because we're still dreaming. We're in the clouds.
Yeah.
We're not seeing the tactical. We're not learning the lessons. We're not reflecting on the things that ultimately get us to the next step, or that helped us shape and form that next step in a way that builds the relationship that we need to have to move forward.
Yeah. I even like on the SMART goals, we have one, we use the M as motivating. Is it motivating? Because then I can align it with, because measurable, trackable is kind of measurable anyways. So, right, if you put motivating, specific, motivating, attainable, realistic, and trackable. But I always ask myself, is this motivating? Like to me,
It's really good.
Because if you think about what your values are and what you're wanting, you got to look at your whole life. And if you were to die tomorrow, or you're to die in 10 years, what did you want to accomplish and what did you want to do? Because some of the goals we chase aren't motivating, and you can't sustain them because they suck the life out of you, and
That's
you're
right.
stuck in the
That's
rut.
right. That's 100% right. And I wonder sometimes, because I haven't really understood this until really the last 3 or 4 years, but when you talk about setting goals, if you don't understand the core of who you are and what the deepest part of your soul is telling you to do, man, it's just empty.
Yeah.
And I went through this practice a few years ago of and hopefully this is valuable for your listeners, but this is what I did. I went through and I said, okay, who are the 10 most influential people in my life? And then I went through and I wrote down all the characteristics of those people that influenced me. What, the patience, the love, the drive, the authenticity, the integrity, the vision in their life. And as I cross-compared those people in my life, first of all, if you don't have people in your life that you can do that in, you need to find them.
You need to find new people. You need to find some more
people. But once
people.
you have that, then I wrote those down, and then I looked at the similarities, the synonyms of words that I had written down about those, and I did what I called a keep, kill, combine. I kept the ones that were the most important to me. I killed the ones that I'm like, yeah, those are good, but that's not what is my core. And then I combined a few, and it came to a point where there were 4 words that define my life and that define our business and define everything I do, which is vision, integrity, drive, and authenticity. And I put them in that way because vida, V-I-D-A, is a Spanish word for life.
Pura vida.
Yeah.
Pura
It's
vida.
life.
Yeah.
And it brings life to me now because I know who I am and what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
So then it gives that context. So now instead of just tangible item 1 that I'm working for, tangible item 2 that I'm working for, it's like, what truly is going to bring life? To your point, what is it that I'm truly passionate about? But more, even deeper than that, what is it at my core that gets me up in the morning? And it's hard because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, right? As I've fluctuated that whole dynamic of balancing depression and anxiety, and I've been through some of those emotions, which is really, really hard. Never thought I would. But
And moods and hormones, like just different change, all the things. That
well, and every
affect
business
us.
leader does that, right?
Yeah.
Everyone listening to the podcast today, they've been through that. And what's interesting is going into the word authenticity. Most people don't talk about it because they're afraid. They're afraid of how people will judge them because of their insecurities or their weaknesses. And I started sharing some of the stuff on social media, just some of the things that I've been experiencing over the last several months and years. And I've had so many people reach out to me and just say, I'm so glad you're sharing it. I mean, look at the world we live in. The suicide rate's higher than it's ever been.
Loneliness is an
epidemic, right? We are going through a time where people feel more alone than they ever have. They're more socially connected, yet emotionally disconnected.
Communicating, but they're not connected. It's a connection tool. It's a communication tool.
That's right.
It's not a connection tool.
And above and beyond that, they're living this game of comparison.
Yes.
Where
Thief of joy.
That's right. Where they're looking at things going, I want to be like ... And they can't, in their minds, they can't translate that into happiness. They see it's happiness because, a photo was created in a rented vehicle with all the things, but they can't truly, they think that's what happiness is, but it's not.
It's not.
It's not what really drives fulfillment in life. And
Right.
when you're talking about goal orientation, I look at that as, to your point, what can I accomplish in this life that will create meaning?
Yeah.
What influence and impact can I have on people so that when all is said and done, life is so short, what will people say? And not even that I care what people will say, but what is the impact that my children will hear based on the relationship that I have with other people?
Yeah.
My kids get tremendously furious with me. Anywhere I go, they're like, Dad, you just know everyone. Because I take time to legitimately stop and dive into their life for a minute.
Yeah.
And I do this with my kids as well. We go on dates all the time, and I want to know. I want to know more about them, and I want to know the goods, the bads, and the ugly that they're experiencing. And my kids are going through hard things.
Yeah.
Things that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. But because of the world that they live in and the availability they have to information, and the comparison that they see with their friends on social media, like they're living in this world that it's unparalleled. We've never seen anything like it before. And so, going back to the concept of goal orientation, I think having a purpose and a meaning in life, having a goal that you're moving forward towards can create that fulfillment that people are looking for, because right now it's relatively empty.
Because you're not going to ever feel fulfilled because you bought a new car. Or a brand new car, or you got the beach house, or you got this. Like, if you're not enjoying the journey and you'll just want the next thing. And that's how humans work. We get to a goal, and then that's not enough. Then we're not happy. Then we move on to the next. So finding how you can find joy and meaning in every day, breaking some goals down into like SMART goals, like you said, like reverse engineering, like at the end of life, this is what I want to have accomplished. I want to have a good relationship with my family. I want to have friends. I want to have community impact. What does that look like? And how could I put that into my day, my week, my month, my year, so that it's not like I'm going to, be Mother Teresa, right? But I've got to be able to consistently show up to things, whether it's serving on a board, whether it's volunteering at the school, whether it's reading, or, whatever you're doing that aligns with the things that, for me, it's helping women and children in need. And finding equitable opportunities for them. And so as I think about that, I try to find things that fill my soul and then make goals around that, because I feel like my personal business success will be a result of me just living my being, who I am.
Yeah, and for some people listening to the podcast today, maybe that goal is just to get out of bed for the day.
Yeah. I've had those days.
Reach out to someone in your circle of influence and just say, thank you for having an impact on me.
Yeah.
We are all in a place where we feel empty at certain times. And I've found some of the most meaningful relationships that I've built has simply been sending a text to someone saying, hey, I just want you to know that I really appreciate it, and I'm grateful for the relationship that we share, the friendship that we have. And to some, it might just be a text on that they received. To others, it could have been the thing that they heard that day that gave them the motivation to live another day.
Yeah.
There's people in my life that have for one reason or another gotten to a place in their own life where they felt like there was no answers. And so, as business leaders in a community, I know this is more for business leaders, as business leaders in a community, it can feel really lonely. And that's where we created the dynamic of RizeX, is to bring people that were driven, motivated, goal-oriented, to come together to talk openly about what their experience of business is. Now, it's not always the problems. sometimes it's just the celebrations of how can we do business together, but what are you doing and how can we celebrate you? You know, they say oftentimes, right, that the top is very lonely, and it is. You know, I've been there. I've been there where it felt like everything was going right, but yet I felt like I'm all alone here. And I'm sure several business leaders get to that point in their business where you can't go talk to your vice president because if you share openly with them, then they're going to see it as a weakness and be like, "Oh, that guy's not as good as we think he is." But the platform and the reason that I love connecting and communicating with people is, sure, have I had success in my business? Absolutely. Have I had the most success in my business where ultimately I see that I should be, my own perception of where I should or could be? No, but I see the relationships that I've built. I've seen businesses grow tremendously because of introductions that I've made. And I find way more fulfillment in opening those doors where people authentically can build the relationships that they need to go to the next stage in life.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful thing.
For sure. It's just there's so much depth in this. We are going deep in all of this. Like we're talking about purpose, meaning, I mean, all of this, those are the things that matter. And the goals should be aligned with that.
100%.
So if you haven't taken the time to really reflect, and let's just be honest, some people are in that place. When we don't have our basic needs met, we're not self-actualizing.
That's exactly
You're
right.
in this phase of life where you're in your self-actualization mode, and you are trying to figure it out. When people are struggling for food, shelter, you know, the basic needs, they're not going to be doing that. And that's where a lot of people are living right now.
100%.
And so knowing where people are, if they're not getting those basic needs met, they can't come to this next level of their mission and their purpose and all of these things. This is a self-actualization piece. It's not something where you can expect somebody homeless to be doing this or someone that's in an abusive relationship.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
so everybody's circumstance, time of life, you know, I feel for the listeners that are listening to this going, how do I know this? And yeah, easy for you to say you've got a successful business, but I just want to let you know that any person that I've brought on the podcast, including myself, has been through struggles, has felt the loneliness, has felt like they're an imposter, had imposter syndrome, felt like they weren't good enough, felt they, you know, look through the lens of I'm not enough, I'm not smart enough, I can't publicly speak, I can't do a Facebook Live.
Yeah.
The stories we tell ourselves, and even the story that you said a minute ago that stuck out in my mind of we can't share with the leader because then they're going to think we're not good enough for this position. That might be true, or it might be a story.
Yeah. 100%.
You know, and so sometimes, you know, you really have to know the person, and it's on an individualized basis. But oftentimes we're wrong, and it's this
100%.
story we've been telling ourselves, or the way we've been raised about I can't be vulnerable because then they'll think I'm weak. But oftentimes when you share and you're vulnerable, you actually build trust, and you know it's not weakness. Vulnerability is our greatest measure of courage.
100%.
And sometimes the chips do fall where they may, and you find out who somebody really is. And if they cut you because you were vulnerable, then that tells me a lot about them. It doesn't tell me about me. I have to be like, well, maybe I don't want to work with that person or that organization.
Well, you know what's interesting? The thought comes to my mind of regardless of your situation, regardless of your circumstance, regardless of where you are and what you're doing right now in your life, there are people that are there to help.
For sure.
Right? You know, and it's fascinating to me. I've talked to so many tremendous leaders that I thought were untouchable. That are like, yeah, absolutely. I rarely get a call to go sit down for coffee or go sit down for a conversation. And the reason being is because we think, again, the story we tell ourselves is that I'm not good enough to be there. And, you know, if you talk about goals, you know, retracting a little bit and just, you know, to your point you were talking about, regardless of where you are in your life, move forward. Your goal tomorrow might be, I'm going to go do that one thing that scared me. Brian Tracy has the beautiful concept of eat that frog, right? Where it's like, do the hardest thing in the day because then everything else will feel easier. if we challenge ourselves, and this is where you and I met, at a retreat, you were anxious to do a Facebook Live event. I'm like, let's go. Just turn it on and do it right now. You're like, okay. And sure enough, you did it. And, all of the things that have come as a byproduct of that. And it wasn't even the fact that you continued doing that, even though you did. It's the fact that you challenged yourself and you accomplished something that made you feel like, I can do it again and again and again. And now what else can I do? Because we find trust in ourselves. When we take action, then towards an objective, it really moves us down this path of success in our own mind, right? Whatever success might look like. And again, people can define success, however, to your point, if they're in this journey of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and they're just trying to get their basic fundamental needs met, maybe their true measurement of success that day is, was I able to earn enough for the day to eat?
Yeah, right?
And I imagine, with the listeners on your podcast here, I imagine that's maybe not the exact person that we're talking about, right? Because it's a leader, but even for those leaders, how often have you looked at the people in your organization and truly understand what they're going through so that you can help them meet some of those fundamental components, but also take them on this journey of getting them to an emotional attachment with you in the organization in such a way that builds equity in the relationship that you have, which equity goes both ways, right? And I'm not saying equity in terms of ownership. I'm talking about equity, social and emotional equity, emotional intelligence, and the fact that if you can really read people, you can help them live a tremendous life by meeting them where they are at that time. And I love, that's obviously what you guys do. You do a lot of that, of doing this assessment of humans to figure out, based on a scale, where are you, what are your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and then meet them where they are. And I think all too often we think, okay, I have to give this person a test in order to understand where they are. I think if we ask questions and we truly listen, instead of listen with an intent to answer, but listen with the intent to listen, then we can help them help understand what their objectives are, what their goals are, where they're trying to take their life, and we can be an instrument in transforming that. And it goes back to the concept of my life legacy is I would love to live in this world where you really truly can have everything you want in this life by helping enough other people get what they want. And I always put the caveat on the back of that is without ever having the expectation of anything in return.
Yeah, that's
right? Because I think if we attach that to it, then it's truly selfless. If we don't add that to it, then it's selfish. Right? Then it's one dimensional. I'm going to help this person so that. But my intent is, let me help that person regardless of the outcome. And I have made connections with people in my circles of influence that have done tremendous amounts of business together. And they've accomplished their goals and their objectives in their life. And I see them living their life right now. And some of that, not all of it, some of that was a result of connections that I made. And I am truly happy and feel fulfilled because I was able to open that door for them.
That's awesome. It feels good to give somebody. It really
does, you know. And I always love the concept of you truly. And I don't really know how to paraphrase this, but you truly will never find more joy than doing something for someone else that they will never be able to repay you.
Yeah, that's good. And that is the goal, to do something for somebody that they will never be able to repay you for. What other, if you were to talk to yourself and your young Ryan, or just young listeners, young leaders just wanting to get some tips, what are some of the things you wish you would have known earlier?
Find your core. Chase your passions, but find your core. Find those core values that truly define what you want to be. Not who you are today, but what you want to be. The type of father, the type of brother, the type of friend, the type of business partner that you want to be. Find out what that is. Be very specific in who you choose to be around. Because we choose people every single day to be around and demand our time and draw from our time. And if those people don't have the same core values, there will be a day of reckoning at some point. And that day of reckoning will not be nice.
No.
So if I could go back and tell myself, my 28-year-old self that just left the engineering world and I'm freelancing and trying to figure out what the heck I'm going to do next, I would say make those decisions truly that are around the passion that you have, but more importantly, the core values of what you hold true. Set goals, objectives, small, smart goals, and big, hairy, audacious goals in your life of what you want to accomplish, because that vision of where you can be won't be realized unless you do that. But set those goals that will keep you moving forward. And then I guess the last thing I would say is just continue to surround yourself with incredible people.
Absolutely.
Find those people.
So key. It's been a pleasure having you on here.
So
for
fun.
sure. I love it. I love having the conversations, and I like going deep and having meaningful conversations. And I told Rob the other day that I actually don't think I'm an extrovert unless it has to do with meaningful conversations. I said, because what I really am finding is the shallow conversations that are just about the weather and, how did you get there and how's your summer been? I can only have those conversations for so long before it starts to suck the life out of me. And so if you're listening, I would just encourage you to ask deeper questions, to be brave enough to ask somebody to help you, be brave enough to ask somebody to mentor you, to come alongside you and help you with your goals, or even share if you have somebody you admire, that you go to them and say, how did you do this? What did you? Because more than you would know, people will give you the benefit of the doubt, and they'll give you some information, even if it's in an email or a phone call. Most people are willing to help because that actually fuels them. But I think we tell ourselves a story that they're not going to have time for me. I'm nobody. What do they want to hear from me? But really, if they know they could help you, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's why you're doing what you're doing. It's part of our humanity to help other people. And so if this was helpful for you, I ask that you share it. And I ask that you take the time to really look at what you value, what those 4 or 5 core values are. I love the Vita. The Vita, that is awesome.
Life.
Yeah. Pure.
Well, and as we're closing, can I just share one question that's transformed the way that I have relationships with people?
Yeah.
So you're talking about, if wherever you are in your journey, here's a question that could create meaning. I learned this from Brian, a friend of mine in Boise, and he said, what's the most meaningful thing that happened to you in the last 30 days, personally and professionally?
Ooh, I love that.
And then when they answer, say, well, why was that so meaningful and impactful to you? It will catch people off guard, first and foremost, but then they'll stop and think. And then it just opened a new level of authenticity with that person that will transform. So anyone that's listening, use those questions, because it will go from the weather to, whoa, this person is interested.
They're deep.
They're deep. Well, more importantly, they're interested in me.
They want to know
They
about
want to
me.
know about me.
They want to connect.
Yeah.
That's a great
So
tip.
fun.
Love it. Thank you so much. I'm so glad I had you today. And thank you for listening. Please, like I said, like and share. And if you have ideas for new podcasts or different people you'd like to be on the podcast, please contact us at Angie@BlackRiverPM.com. Thank you. Did you know that Black River offers a learning management system with over 10,000 development topics? The Leader U Learning Management System is an affordable option that empowers organizations to manage and curate in-house learning development opportunities. The built-in calendar and scheduling system can be used to coordinate compliance courses such as HR Respectful Workplace and IT Cybersecurity, or lunch and learns on topics such as motivation, self-leadership, and leading more effective meetings. At Black River, we are dedicated to providing a learning solution that focuses on engaging employees in their own self and team development. Our clients use the Leader U Learning Management System to remove barriers through accessible and self-paced micro-learning content, save time with the centralized and automated training assignments, promote more meaningful team discussions, issue certificates of completion and track development efforts, and enhance and simplify onboarding efforts. Contact us for more information on our learning management system at info@blackrivepm.com.